In a world where noise and aggression are often seen as undeniable signs of power, there exists another, far more subtle and devastating kind of strength. It is not the force that loudly announces itself, demanding attention and submission, but one that has no need for such displays. Society seems obsessed with a cycle of retaliation, endless counterstrikes, and the relentless need to prove one's worth, which is why silence is often mistaken for defeat or weakness. From a young age, we are taught to push back immediately when faced with disrespect, to raise our voice if we are ignored, and to seek revenge for any attack. But what if true greatness and unshakable strength lie not in open resistance, but in the masterful command of restraint, in the ability to remain composed in the face of provocation? This is where the deepest paradox lies. True dominance is achieved not by fighting against another's energy, but by mastering your own. And it is here that Niccolo Machiavelli steps onto the stage, a figure whose name still sparks controversy, associated with ruthless pragmatism in matters of power, skillful manipulation, and political control. He possessed an insight that allowed him to grasp something fundamental that most people still fail to understand. Machiavelli believed that perfect control over one's public image, emotions, and most importantly, one's reactions, could be a far more effective and even deadlier weapon than brute force. In his iconic treatise, The Prince, he left a thought that echoes through the centuries. It is better to be feared than loved if you cannot be both. But this fear, he believed, had nothing to do with violence or tyranny. It was the embodiment of absolute control, control over perception, over timing, and most intriguingly, over powerful silence. In this narrative, we will explore 6 unwritten laws of true dominance. This is not about showy displays or manipulative tactics, but rather about conscious development, hidden power, and the refined art of achieving inner stability. Let us begin this deep exploration with an open mind, looking not only at the external world, but also into the depths of our own character. You will discover that true dominance lies not in the desire to control others, but in the unshakable ability to never let them control you. Principle 1. Stop justifying your actions and decisions. As Benjamin Disraeli aptly noted, never complain, never explain. One of the most profound displays of inner strength is the ability to free yourself from the obsessive need to be understood. Most people, unfortunately, are prone to constant explanation. They endlessly clarify the motives for their actions, defend the legitimacy of their choices, and seek validation from others. But every time you over-explain, you unintentionally give away a piece of your inner power. This behavior silently tells others, "Your opinion matters more to me than my own peace of mind." True dominance is born the moment you stop giving away your inner strength so freely. Just think about it. You've likely seen someone say no without any explanation or take an action that goes against common expectations while flatly refusing to comment. There is something magnetic in such behavior, shrouded in mystery and even to some extent intimidating. This is because true power is rooted in minimalism, in concise simplicity, in a transparent clarity that requires no external validation. Niccolo Machiavelli understood this wisdom perfectly. He advised statesmen to be decisive in their actions, but to carefully conceal their true intentions. When others are left in the dark about the real reasons for someone's actions, they lose the ability to predict their moves, control them, or manipulate them. It is this unpredictability that is a key element of dominance. Bringing this to everyday life, you can evolve without making a lot of noise, transforming your established patterns and distancing yourself from destructive people. Perhaps the fruits of your efforts are not yet fully visible, and others are curious, asking questions. In such situations, do not give them answers. Let time itself put everything in its place and reveal the truth. Every explanation you provide is like a leak, weakening the fortress you are building. And that fortress is holding something truly magnificent. People fear what they cannot understand. They easily dismiss what is clear and obvious. But in the face of the inexplicable, they feel awe. But if you become a silent yet purposeful force that needs no justification, you become untouchable. There is a subtle truth that is rarely spoken. The most powerful individuals choose to walk away from arguments they could win, simply to preserve their inner peace. They understand that any reaction is just a distraction from what truly matters. If someone needs to know why you walked away, it probably means your paths were never meant to align in the first place. This silence is not weakness. It is a powerful weapon. You owe no one an explanation. You only owe yourself the results. Principle 2. Let their ego be their downfall. As Napoleon Bonaparte famously said, "Never interrupt your enemy when he is making a mistake." Dominance is not always about moving forward. Sometimes it is about tactical patience, about watching your opponents overplay their hand while you remain composed. Ego often acts as a blinder, preventing an accurate perception of reality. And the most dangerous people in any room are those who believe they are invincible. Here is the key principle. When someone disrespects you, underestimates you, or tries to provoke you, do not correct them. Let them believe you are insignificant. Let their guard down. When their vigilance has faded, that is when you make your move. Niccolo Machiavelli, as we know, placed great importance not on authenticity, but on the strategic value of appearance. He argued that deliberately creating an impression of weakness or ignorance is a powerful tactical move. This approach, in his view, opens doors to new opportunities, allowing one to get to the heart of a situation and, most importantly, encouraging the opponent to reveal their cards and true intentions. True dominance, therefore, lies not in showcasing your abilities, but in suppressing the urge to prove anything. The moment you start actively defending your position, you unintentionally lower yourself to the level of your rivals. And if that level is defined solely by their ego, then, it must be said, they are already masters of that particular game. Let others talk. Let them underestimate you. Let them mistake your silence for ignorance or weakness. While they are consumed with self-presentation and outward appearances, the true strategist is focused on the real work. This principle applies to all areas of life, in your career, in your relationships, in building your social standing. There will always be those who believe they have the upper hand. They flaunt their position, never missing a chance to mock your quiet composure. But if you remain patient, balanced, and continue to think strategically, your opponents will inevitably begin to self-destruct. The louder and more arrogant they become, the more vulnerable they ultimately are. And when their ego finally spirals out of control, they are, in essence, digging their own grave. You often see individuals, lulled by a false sense of superiority, become complacent. They act recklessly, convinced there is no threat. These situations arise constantly. In such moments, you have a choice. Either get drawn into their destructive energy or demonstrate true mastery by controlling your own reactions. Choose self-control and virtuosity. You cannot dominate a chessboard by moving all the pieces at once and chaotically. Victory is achieved differently, by allowing your opponent to believe in their own superiority and your imminent defeat. And then, at the perfect moment, delivering a decisive and precise strike. Let their ego build grand illusions. The wise observer simply waits patiently for the curtain on this performance to inevitably fall. Prince. 3. Success is the only answer. As the Joker famously said in The Dark Knight, "If you're good at something, never do it for free." There is a higher, unspoken power move. It consists of elevating yourself so powerfully and obviously that there is no longer any need for verbal explanations or justifications. There is something truly poetic in this focused pursuit of personal growth. When you are so absorbed in your development that the noise of the outside world becomes completely unnoticeable. While others are busy casting shadows and spreading negativity, you are steadily building. When others doubt your true worth, you keep creating. And even when they try to stir up pointless drama, you remain focused on building. That is the formula. Niccolo Machiavelli understood that public perception is key. He urged leaders not to waste precious time constantly defending their reputation, but instead to focus entirely on concrete, tangible achievements. It is these accomplishments, he believed, that can effectively silence any critics on their own. In other words, he called not just to talk about power, but to actively, purposefully build it. The people who are most often underestimated or misunderstood are those in the midst of a profound transformation. They have already moved on from their former state, but have not yet reached their destination. And what happens at this point? Others begin to judge. They doubt their abilities. They belittle their efforts and prospects. And it is in this very fragile, intermediate space that most people, unfortunately, break under the pressure. But we are not talking about such a person. Your task is to build relentlessly while remaining in the shadows, away from the public eye. You should not announce every step you take, nor should you publish every carefully crafted plan. There is also no need to respond to any attacks or criticisms. Let your rapid growth and unexpected development confuse those who are watching from the sidelines. Let your profound evolution completely humiliate all their previous assumptions and superficial judgments. When you truly begin to grow and develop, you will notice a curious change. You become significantly quieter. This state is not a sign of fear or insecurity. On the contrary, it is a sign of deep, focused concentration. You begin to realize that silence is not synonymous with emptiness. It is, in fact, full of inner movement and powerful energy. For true, deep changes make far less noise than showy, false confidence. Right now, you may feel completely invisible to others, but that is perfectly normal, and moreover, it is an essential part of the grand design. Caterpillars do not scream loudly before they turn into beautiful butterflies. On the contrary, they go into voluntary isolation to fully immerse themselves in the process of profound transformation. And when they finally emerge in their new form, they have absolutely no need to explain anything. Their magnificent wings speak eloquently for themselves, serving as proof of the changes that have occurred. This is how you should be. Let others wonder what exactly you are building. Let them make various assumptions and theories. and let them all fall silent when you reappear in their midst in a few months. This will happen not because you talked a lot, but because you have genuinely changed, become someone new. This is how true Prince 4. To rise, you sometimes must disappear. The Roman emperor and philosopher Marcus Aurelius once advised, retreat into yourself. In silence, you will find strength. Indeed, in certain circumstances, the most far-sighted and powerful move is to withdraw. However, this is not a display of anger or weakness, but rather a carefully considered, strategic decision. There comes a moment when your personal or professional growth is no longer in harmony with your environment. Conversations begin to feel empty and superficial. The atmosphere becomes heavy and oppressive, and the general expectations remain depressingly low. It is precisely during such a period that it is time to temporarily step back, to disappear from view. This should not be confused with complete isolation. On the contrary, it is a period of deep incubation, a time for gathering strength and reevaluation. The philosopher Niccolo Machiavelli, known for his pragmatism, held a deep mistrust of the crowd. He warned rulers, emphasizing the fickle and inconsistent nature of the masses. Today, they are ready to praise you to the heavens. Tomorrow, to cast you into the abyss of damnation. That is why true leaders learn to govern from a certain distance. This is done not out of arrogance or detachment, but solely for self-preservation and effectiveness. Such a distance grants an invaluable perspective, and that perspective, in turn, becomes a source of true power. There is something deeply sacred in the act of withdrawal. You cease to be an actor on the public stage, stop reacting to every external stimulus, and stop feeding the information noise. And it is in this blessed silence that you rediscover your true mission, undergo an internal recalibration, and achieve a comprehensive restoration. However, society often reacts quite negatively when someone decides to temporarily step back. Why does this happen? The reason lies in this. A person who is not constantly available becomes unpredictable, and unpredictable individuals are perceived as potentially dangerous because they cannot be controlled or manipulated. Consequently, others will inevitably try to make you feel guilty, accusing you of being distant. They will claim that you have changed, that your behavior is different. And that is wonderful. That, in fact, is the whole point of such a withdrawal. There is no need to remain forever in the same repetitive cycles. You should not remain constantly available for the same destructive dramas, the same empty gossip, or the same stagnant, limiting comfort zone. Withdrawal is, in fact, a powerful tool in your arsenal. You should use it actively. When you disappear from public view, you free yourself from the burden of constant comparison with others, and you stop being swayed by their influence. During this period, you gain the opportunity to listen to your inner voice, your true aspirations, and your deep convictions. And when the time comes to return, if you so choose, you will appear before the world far more insightful, serene, and purposeful than before. Others may not recognize you, and that is perfectly fine, because your former self should be left peacefully in the past. You are not obligated to report to anyone about your path of self-recovery and transformation. You have no need to publicly declare your intentions or goals. It is enough to simply step into the shadows and then rise majestically, like the moon that hides behind the clouds, only to reappear in all its radiance, fullness, and undeniable power. Prince 5. Do not react. Instead, observe, and record. The great sage Lao Tzu once uttered a profound truth. He who has power over others may be powerful, but he who has mastered himself is mightier still. There is an almost instinctive, subconscious reflex that the vast majority of people find difficult to control: the insatiable need to react immediately. If someone dares to insult you, you are inclined to retaliate instantly. If someone's words raise doubts, you strive to prove the opposite at all costs. And if someone shows blatant disrespect, the natural reaction is to defend yourself. But here lies a fundamental rule. Every such reaction is, in essence, a kind of exchange, a transaction for which you inevitably pay with a portion of your inner strength and energy. The great thinker Machiavelli was keenly aware that turbulent human emotions can irreversibly cloud one's judgment. A ruler prone to thoughtless and impulsive reactions inevitably becomes vulnerable and easily influenced, becoming an object of manipulation. However, a sovereign who prefers to carefully observe events, methodically record details, and meticulously preserve the information gathered, waiting for the most opportune moment, represents a completely different level of danger. Imagine the most influential and potentially dangerous participants in any meeting or situation. These individuals rarely stand out for their loud voices or open aggression. Their true power is revealed in their apparent stillness and silence. They watch events closely, mentally or physically noting important moments, studying recurring patterns of behavior, and tirelessly accumulating valuable data. And only when the critically timed and appropriate moment arrives do they act, demonstrating astonishing precision and deliberation in their moves. This is precisely the approach that is strongly recommended for daily life. A person following these principles does not engage in futile arguments with ignorant or narrow-minded individuals, but instead carefully studies their actions and motives. They do not succumb to the momentary desire for revenge when faced with attacks, but prefer to deeply analyze the situation and its origins. They do not react instantly to every provocative jab or biting remark, but carefully file it away in their memory or notes, preserving it as potential leverage for the future. Thus, the individual transforms into a strategic player whose behavior cannot be called passive. On the contrary, it is deeply purposeful and thought out. This universal principle applies to all spheres of human existence. In personal relationships, when someone attempts to gaslight you, trying to distort reality and make you doubt your own perception, you should not engage in emotional debates. It is far more effective to simply observe their patterns of behavior, record these observations in your mind, and trust the patterns you identify. In the workplace, if a colleague or competitor seeks to undermine your authority, you should not give in to an emotional reaction. It is important to document the incident, understand the true motives and strategy of your opponent, and then use this understanding to outmaneuver them when the most opportune moment arises. And even in public, when someone deliberately tries to humiliate you, the best tactic is to maintain complete composure. Such actions speak volumes about the aggressor's own insecurity and internal problems, revealing more about them to the world than about their victim. Let their own insecurity be their undoing. The issue is not about being distant or emotionally cold. Rather, it is focused on achieving absolute clarity of thought and action. A true individual is not a puppet whose movements depend on the manipulations of others. They do not dance to another's tune when someone pulls the invisible strings. A person's true power is rooted in their unshakable ability to consciously choose when, how, and whether to react to external stimuli at all, while others impulsively respond to every event. The strategically minded individual is busy building. They are forming a vast bank of knowledge and experience, developing a long-term strategy, and laying the foundations of their future legacy. And when the right moment for action arrives, their steps will be so deliberate and precise that others might mistake it for a coincidence or simply good luck. But behind this apparent success lies not chance, but the result of deep deliberation and iron restraint. Prince 6. Kill them with indifference. As Anton Chekhov aptly remarked, "To be insulted by a fool is a pleasure." In the life of every person on the path of self-improvement, there comes a turning point when they stop even registering attempts to show disrespect or to insult them. This happens not because others have suddenly stopped trying, but because, for them, these actions have lost all meaning and significance. Such a state of mind, when external negativity no longer has a hold, is a manifestation of true spiritual superiority. Many are probably familiar with the aphorism, "Kill them with kindness." However, showing kindness, for all its nobility, still requires a certain expenditure of energy. It still, in essence, acknowledges the presence and significance of the opponent. But what if you were to go much further? What if you were to deprive them not only of the ability to provoke a reaction, but of the very sense of their own importance, by killing them with absolute indifference? This, without a doubt, is the highest form of power, a deep apathy toward meaningless displays and commotion. Niccolò Machiavelli, the great thinker of the Renaissance, held the conviction that true rulers must possess the ability not to be swayed by trivial matters and insignificant incidents. In his works, he indicated that a far-sighted and wise leader should be able to create an impression of being virtuous and noble, yet their actions should be dictated solely by strategic interests and considerations of advantage. Such an approach implies a deliberate ignoring of minor insults, a refusal to participate in insignificant and useless battles, and a disregard for anything that does not serve the achievement of their broad, global objective. This does not stem from a weakness of character or an inability to fight back, but, on the contrary, is evidence of deep focus and absolute dedication to their main mission. Indeed, not all events and statements are worthy of a person's life force. Not every hurtful word or jab requires an immediate response. Not every empty rumor or speculation demands a vigorous defense of one's reputation. People who possess true inner strength have grasped this wisdom. Their own value is not in question and does not need the approval of others. It is the demonstration of such indifference that confounds those who are insecure. They passionately desire to see you lose your composure, to see you consumed by anger or irritation. When such a reaction does not occur, they are left utterly bewildered. Just think about it. When someone attempts to throw you off balance, and you respond with only a slight smile, a calm nod, or simply walk away, what happens? The provocateurs intensify their actions. Their voices become louder, their behavior more theatrical and dramatic. The reason is simple. Such silence is deafening. It silently declares, "You are not worth my attention. You are not on my level." This is how true dominance is manifested. It is not loud words, not a thirst for revenge, but a deliberate, calm, and firm decision not even to engage with the attempt. Let them keep talking. Let them try with all their might to provoke. Let them wonder why you remain unaffected. Let them speculate. While they are absorbed in thinking about your composure, you are busy creating something far more valuable and significant. You have mastered the art of managing your own reactions, your inner state, and your peace of mind. And this kind of self-control cannot be questioned. It cannot be faked. It cannot be bought. It is the fruit of relentless emotional discipline. Therefore, from now on, when someone tries to draw you into a pointless and meaningless confrontation, you should not respond. You should not defend. You should not explain. Instead, you must simply continue on your path, as if these provocateurs never existed in your reality. This is how true dominance is achieved, without the need to engage in open conflict. Such a position is not a sign of weakness. On the contrary, it embodies an emotional immortality, impervious to external shocks. In conclusion, it is worth recalling the words of Marcus Aurelius, who once wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events. Realize this, and you will find strength." You have now been introduced to all 6 unwritten rules of achieving complete dominance. However, the thread that unites all these principles is none other than absolute self-mastery. Each of the points mentioned was not just a tactical ploy or a strategic decision. It was aimed at your own inner state, at your development, your silence, your restraint, your inner growth, your apparent indifference. All of these should not be regarded as signs of weakness or retreat. On the contrary, they are the foundation, the cornerstones of true Stoic strength. The philosophy of Stoicism teaches an individual a fundamental truth that harmonizes surprisingly well with the more pragmatic, sometimes even grim, insights of the genius Machiavelli. If you can completely control yourself, then no one else can control you. Let others underestimate your abilities. Let them spread gossip. Let them try to guess your true motives and plans. An individual's true power is revealed not in loud declarations or external displays, but precisely in what they consciously avoid doing. They do not engage in emotional reactions. They do not resort to pleas or begging. They do not waste time explaining their actions. They do not get involved in petty, meaningless wars, because their main task is to build an unshakable empire within their own mind and spirit. The Stoics, adherents of ancient philosophy, argued that the highest triumph is not the conquest of external forces, be they enemies, competitors, or even the world itself, but solely victory over oneself. They pointed to the inner voice that incites aggression, to the ego that tirelessly craves revenge, and to the fear that seeks confirmation and approval from the outside. When an individual achieves mastery over these inner impulses and weaknesses, all other aspects of their being naturally fall into harmony. While the thinker Machiavelli instructed on how to govern through perception and external image, Stoicism teaches the art of governing through unshakable principles. The combination of these two approaches, it was believed, could grant a person a truly invulnerable position. Thus, the final instruction is crystal clear. There is no need to resist external circumstances or internal impulses. Excessive displays of emotion or loud declarations are inappropriate. One should refrain from hasty reactions. Instead, the key is to gain complete control over oneself. One must act silently and deliberately, allowing one's deeds and results to speak for themselves, without the need for verbal accompaniment.